Joe, thanks for joining us, man. I appreciate you.
Thank you guys for having me. Excited to chat with you.
So let's talk about probably the best franchise in independent film, shall we? Because Hell House is a everyday name with everybody.
Yes.
I didn't see the first one until like 3 or 4 months afterwards. Like, how did you get hooked up with Stephen Cognetti? Because you two just seem to have the nightmare fuel everybody's been looking for the past couple of years for horror movies.
Yeah, it's funny. I think our franchise is a word of mouth franchise. Because a lot of people didn't. We started getting more attention on the franchise in around 2018 and 2019, and the first movie came out in 2015. So it became one of those films where, like, anytime someone would on Reddit or online would say, "Hey, have you ever heard of this? Or you've ever seen this?" and then someone hasn't seen it, and then they see it, and then they realize there's a whole bunch of sequels. So we've kind of grown that way.
Yeah.
But I got in touch. Steve and I, we met each other in 2013. The guy who plays Mac, his name's Adam Schneider in the first three movies. He was friends with Steven and he was friends with me independently. And he came to me. I was in the process of working on my first feature that I was going to direct. And he came to me and he asked me if I knew anyone that was a producer and would be interested in working with another horror filmmaker. And I was like, I would do it. I was like, I definitely, I kind of at that point in my career and even present day, I realized that a lot of times when you're directing a film, depending on where you're at and how big your budget is, directing a film takes anywhere from like 2 to 3 years to up to 10 years. And so I kind of made the decision earlier on in my career that if I wanted to work on many films and I wanted to work with a lot of people, like I had to put on another hat and not just be a writer director. So I was willing to kind of step into the producer role as well. And Adam connected Steven and and he sent me I think when he sent me the first draft of Hell House, it might have been a narrative script, or he might have just switched it over. But very soon as we met was when he made the decision to move it into found footage for cost reasons and budget reasons. But yeah, I mean, when we met, he had the script and he knew where we were shooting it. But that was pretty much it. And sort of from there, we kind of built out a team and sort of jumped into everything. And like I said, we finished that first movie in 2014. It came out in 2015, and we were already on to the sequel and the next one. And we really didn't start hearing a lot about it until like 2018 or 2019 when we started kind of popping up on these lists and people started telling us that like they loved the movie, they just heard of it, they just watched all three or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, because I got it after the first one, right before the second one, and I didn't hear about it from any of my friends or anything. Or I saw it as it came up on a search. I was looking for like a new horror movie to watch, and I'm like, Hell House, never heard of this.
Right.
And it was like, as soon as I popped it on, I'm like, I want more. And then the second one didn't come out for a while, and then I was just waiting. And like, did you guys expect everybody to just latch onto it, and then just basically
Take
blew out
off.
the sky, basically?
Yeah.
No, I think in general, I think we realized specifically, we've been really blessed and grateful to have a really amazing cast for all of the movies we've worked on. But I think we realized we sort of had lightning in a bottle with that cast, that original cast, because they really embodied like friendship. Like these are people who met each other a week earlier, and they would hang out until 4 o'clock in the morning. They would get drunk with one another after we were done shooting, and it literally felt like five friends who had been friends for 20 plus years. So I think we got really lucky with that cast and really lucky with their dynamic together. But Steven and I, we might differ on this. I think he always knew that it was going to be big. I didn't. I thought the movie was good. I thought we put together something that I was really proud of. But like I said, I don't think I ever. It's scaring people and content. It's such a subjective thing. So you never really know. Like something might be terrifying to me and might not be terrifying to you. So I think we were always just trying to put out the scariest thing that we could and put together something that would be something we wanted to see. But sure enough, like again, because the movie came out in 2015 and it really sort of took a lot of form where we were hearing things about it and we started seeing like all these lists that a lot of, media outlets were putting out saying we're like one of the best found footage movies of all time. We didn't really start seeing that until 2018 or 2019. So, So yeah, I mean, my main method of how I process things is I never go into any. I think I go into everything giving it all I have and working on it the best I can and putting as much as I can into it. But I don't think I ever leave a project saying like I leave a project feeling like we did what we intended to do. But you never know what's going to happen. You could put it out there and an audience might hate it and never watch it, or you could put it out there and it could turn into what Hell House turned into.
Yeah, because it felt like an overnight sensation for me because I was coming in at the
Yeah.
right time, and
Right.
it was right at the end of the first one, and that's when I think I started hearing more about it because I was talking to my friends about horror movies, and they said, "Have you seen Hell House?" I'm like, "How the hell do you know about this?"
Right.
Yeah.
I just found out about this, and then that's when it started rolling, and I started seeing posters and people post about it, people doing TikToks and stuff like that. But I think you and Steven have the horror genre in a chokehold right now because you guys are putting out some of the best horror that we've seen in the past 10 years.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And some of the scenes from these movies are firmly planted in the back of my brain. And now I can't go around my house at night anymore because of you guys.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
That's all I can say. You're welcome.
The girl
All I
sitting
know
off to the
is
side, hanging out over by the door again, and mm-mm.
I'm just saying if I see a mannequin in my backyard, I'm jumping on top of it and putting it in a chokehold. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
So you guys are putting out the final Hell House in August, and it's kind of bittersweet for me because your franchise is probably like one of my favorites. But was this always the end? Like, did you always want to do like 4 or 5 movies and just end it, or
No, we originally so Steven's original idea when we made the first one was he had a trilogy in mind. So we did the trilogy. We put the trilogy out, and that was the end. Like Hell House was done. Like we burnt it to the ground. Spoiler alert for everyone. But so that was the end, and I think our intention was to walk away from it. And I think we went on to go make 825 Forest Road, and while I think when we finished that movie. I think it took a little longer in post production for us to get to where it went to, and by that point in time, now there was a demand for Hell House, and I think that was when the decision was made to go back to it. So when we went back to it, I think Steven had the idea of having 2 to 3 films to tell this new version, and I think ideally he would have ultimately loved to do 3 films. It just felt like the model that we were doing, the way we were making these films, it's super low budget, it's super gritty. They're not long shoots, but a lot goes into them, and they're very consuming. So I think ultimately we made the decision to do 5. And obviously, I'm sure you guys know that the 5th one is not a found footage movie; it's a narrative film.
yep?
So we made the decision to move into narrative, and I think ultimately because I think the scares played better in narrative format than they did in found footage format. And with found footage, it's really difficult to constantly keep having the logic of why someone would be filming in peril or why these things would keep happening. And I think ultimately, when we made the Carmichael Manor, that was like a newer, fresher take. Because usually when you make, we're very lucky that we got to make a franchise. And I think a lot of times as you get to movie 4, 5, 6, and so on, the movies get worse and worse and worse and worse historically in most franchises. And I think with 4, with Carmichael Manor, we were able to kind of inject a new life into it. And again, I think that was probably because we had a young, fun, really awesome cast that like took it upon themselves to sort of embody the characters that they were outside of filming. So I think the goal was to do at least 1 or 2 more. And I think just based on our careers and where things were going, we wanted to be more challenged. I think both Steve and I love found footage, but I think we both would prefer to sort of move into the traditional narrative storytelling and kind of take on newer challenges in our career. And I think we've been really lucky to have the fan base that we have. And obviously we don't ever want to upset our fan base in terms of turning away from the found footage people. But that being said, I think the story of this new one worked traditional and narrative, and I think ultimately the fans are going to be happy with what they see in August and through October.
I can't wait. I'm there day one. I don't care what I'm doing that day. I will be in the theater for that, and I'm glad that AMC's putting it out here.
I'm off work that day, so I can go.
because we
Yeah.
don't get a lot of indie stuff here.
No.
Like
Yeah.
we got Terrifier, and then we got Peter Pan, Neverland Nightmare right afterwards, and then we just got Screamboat for the three
Gotcha.
days. But it's never like long, like a week or 2 weeks or like
Mm.
nothing substantial.
Yeah.
But I got the email that you guys are going to be in AMC, and I was kind of intrigued. Like your all your other films did not get a theater run.
Correct. Yeah. So the first three did not, and we partnered. I believe we partnered with Shudder by the second movie. So we've been most of our movies have all come out on Shudder and have been Shudder exclusives or originals. The fourth movie, we actually did have a limited theatrical deal in place with Alamo Drafthouse.
Mm.
But then around the time that we had that deal was when Taylor Swift announced her Eras tour was coming to theaters, and basically AMC bought up all of the available slots, and like it's a no-brainer. Like obviously you're going to
Mm.
sell out of those things. So unfortunately we lost our theatrical. So we're really happy that this new one is coming out, not just for us in terms of people and our fans, but we're really happy because a lot of the cast that were in the fourth one are in the fifth film. And that was, I think, the thing that we felt the worst about was the fact that we had this deal and all of these people who worked in this movie were going to get to see their work on the big screen, and then like that, it was gone. And I think having this fifth one now be in theaters is more of a like we're happy that everyone from the fourth gets to see themselves on the big screen.
Yeah.
So that's nice.
Yeah, damn you, Taylor Swift, ruin it for
Heart,
everyone.
heartbreaking.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm sure
that's
it wasn't. I'm sure she didn't make the decision, or nor did she have any like awareness of knowing that like this was happening to us. So I don't blame Taylor, but financially, like that we were also hitting a time frame where coming off of COVID, where people weren't going to theaters and
Mm.
theaters were losing money and everything, and like Taylor Swift is like a bank, like you're gonna make your money. So
Yeah.
I don't blame anyone for that. No hard feelings to the Swifties.
especially off the merchandise and the popcorn tins and
No, yeah, all that. Yeah.
like I remember like a couple movies that came out during that week, and it was impossible to go because of all the people.
Right.
Mm.
And I was like, and I asked, well, what are you guys here for? Like Taylor Swift, the Eras tour. I'm like, oh, never mind, I'm going home.
Yeah, it was too many people.
All right, Brandon, you got some clown questions for him, so fire away,
Yeah.
man.
So I did not know that you played the clown. I found that out today. That was fantastic. The acting in it,
Thanks.
with you not being a full time actor, how was that for you?
Fun, a lot of fun. I've told this story before, so I'll tell you the abridged version of it.
Hmm.
But basically, when we made the first Hell House, no one was the clown. It was like everyone. It was like basically all hands on set, guerrilla filmmaking. We had some sequences that we tried some things, and some sequences that we tried the others. The one that we always talk about is the scene with Paul when he's sleeping and the little girl is behind him.
Hmm.
We shot that with the clown. We shot that with the little girl. We wanted to see which ones worked. But basically, on that movie, like multiple people wore the clown costume because it was sort of a set dressing. It was like, okay, cool. We have these four people in this scene. Let's throw the next actor in this. Let's throw someone else in this, and kind of like play around. But after the success, or after that one came out, I think we realized that the clown was a bit bigger and we could kind of move into scares a little bit.
Hmm.
And I think one of the things that Steven and I have benefited is the fact that me being a filmmaker, there was things that I was able to do, not just with the performance of the clown, but even in some of the characters that I play in the movies, because I play three different cameramen in all three of the first three movies, and I die
Yep.
in all of the
Hmm.
movies. And I think one of the things that like that was sort of like we realized that like we wanted always to have actors holding the cameras and actors moving through things, but I think like the cameraman element of it was those are sequences that Steve had envisioned that were more technical, and he wanted to make sure that whoever was operating the camera knew what they were doing. So like naturally he was like, can you play this? And it was fine. And then it became kind of a joke that I was always playing a cameraman and always dying. And again, spoiler for those who see A25 Forest Road, that's why I play a specific person in that movie. But with the clown was more of a, he asked me if I wanted to do it, and I was like, absolutely. And to the acting question, it's interesting. I always tell people I'm not an actor, but I've been acting since I was a teenager. Like I've been in sketch comedy groups. I've done a ton of theater. And so, just naturally in my film career, any movie that I think every movie that I've produced or directed, I've been in some capacity.
Hmm.
I love it, and it's so much fun. And I think one of the cool things about being the clown is there's a lot always happening on a set. And when I wear the mask, our clowns are different than like Art or Pennywise. Like those clowns are meant to be like huge menaces and like big personalities and like fun and like and crazy. And I think our clown is the opposite. Like our clown is meant to be like dreadful and like you have no idea what this clown is thinking. And I think
Yeah.
a lot of times what will happen is we'll do a scene and Steve will have me in the costume and he'll be working through the camera looks or he'll be working with the actor in the scene who's being scared by the clown. And I'm just listening because like it's very claustrophobic in those things. No one can hear me half of the time when I'm saying things. But what happens is like I can see how he's shooting it. I can see what he's going for. And then what I tend to do, which probably bothers him at some point, is he'll tell me, okay, I just want you to sit there. And then in my head, I'll be like, is it scarier to sit here? Or is it scarier if I move my arm? Or if I do this? Or I'm seeing how that he shoots. What if I tried this? So a lot of times what I'll do is the first take I'll always do it the way he asked me to do it. And then I'll just start throwing different things out there and he'll be like, oh, that's good. Like, let's do that again or something like that. So I think the fact that I am a filmmaker and that I do have a background in acting has helped because I can kind of see what he's trying to see and sort of throw him different options so that when we do get into editing, there have been plenty of times that like we did the scene a certain way and then I threw one thing out and then we get an editing and then Steve shows me the scene and it's the one way and I'm like, oh cool, that worked out much better. So it's just I like to give him options and I think give him like kind of the flexibility so when he does get in post, if he wants to change it up a little bit, he can change it up.
And it's better having two people from basically both perspectives to work on one scene also.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Steve does a really good job writing scare sequences and putting together his scare sequences. And I think a lot of the times I'm just thinking about not only like we're thinking about our fans, but also like what's something that would scare us. And like as an example, earlier on, I wanted to do so much more with the clown, and he was like, no. He's like, the clown's more subtle. Like we don't want to turn into like an Art the Clown or a Pennywise. And it's like, okay, cool. But then as we started moving along in the franchise, I was like, hey, like this is weird that everyone's dying the same exact way. Why don't I just do a couple different things and like maybe it'll kind of open the at least like give the audience some different feeling of, oh wow, this clown is not just like this clown. Like I think one of the examples is in the Carmichael Manor, Bridget, who plays Margot Bentley. I always creeped her out on set whenever I put the costume on. So she always got weirded out by it. And so in her death sequence, on the page and what Steve wanted me to do is she's holding the camera and I basically just walk up to the camera and cover the camera. And I knew that she would be fucking mortified if I touched her or if I put my hands on her. And I knew she wasn't going to get mad at me, so it wasn't like something I was doing that was like violating her privacy. But basically, I was like, I remember that in one of the things with Chase, with her brother, his eyes are bleeding and all popped out. So I was like, I'm just going to go like at her face as if I'm going to gouge her eyes out. And when I did that, Steve was like, that's incredible. Do that.
That is awesome.
So that's what was in the movie.
Yeah, that scene lives rent free in my head. Anything about clowns, it just feels like anything about clowns is what scares people. Like Art the Clown, Pennywise. Come on, Pennywise is a lot of people's.
Well,
big
but
thing.
the interesting thing and the thing that I really like about Art Clown is like I think naturally the way I think is like let's go more, let's go big, and I think Steve has always been really good at kind of keeping it subtle and not going over the top and not going crazy, and I think that is something that like has been what's made the clown because it's really easy to go the comical route and go the like silly like route that like not necessarily silly but like stereotypically more of what like a clown would be at like a party for like a little kid's birthday, which is what I think feeds on the whole Pennywise and feeds on Art the Clown is like they're that type of clown, and I think Steve always wanted to keep it a little bit more different, and I think that helped us because I don't think I think when you see Art the Clown or when you see Pennywise, part of
Mm-hmm.
you is scared of them, but part of you is like, I want to laugh along with them. And I don't think our
Mm-hmm.
clown is one of those clowns that you want to laugh along with.
No, no,
No,
no,
it's
no,
and it's not a clown I want to see in the back alley
no.
behind
I
the
don't want
haunted
to see
house
him.
either.
No, 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 no.
Right.
Right before we had you on, this man over here said, "I don't want to go into a haunted house just because of that clown anymore."
Yo, just because of that, yeah. Now,
Awesome.
So
Oh,
you've ruined him. So
yeah,
thanks.
I'm done.
we love hearing those things.
One,
Haunted houses weren't my biggest thing anyway, so
Fair
yeah.
enough.
Now it's
well,
definitely not.
now I know not to invite you ever to a haunted house ever again.
Yeah, no.
One of the emails that we've gotten, because we've talked about Hell House in many episodes, and one email stuck out to me, and I pulled it up to bring it to your attention, is they didn't know that Hell House was not based on the true events because it felt so real to them
Yep.
that it's basically scarred them for life because they thought it was based on true events. So you guys are doing your job,
Yeah.
Thank you.
and you guys should be commended on that because you have people out here thinking that this really happened in a haunted house,
Yeah,
and
in a haunted house.
now nobody wants to go to haunted houses no more.
Right. And listen, I think, found footage is there's good things about found footage in terms of like how they're easier in certain elements of like doing a found footage movie is typically cheaper than doing a traditional narrative because instead of shooting a scene 5 different ways, you shoot it one way every single time. It's one take. You need one take for every scene. Whereas in, traditional narrative, you could have 50 takes, 50 shots in one scene, or 5 takes or 4 takes or different shots. So in that regard, it's easier. And it's also more forgiving. Like lighting doesn't need to be great. Production design doesn't need to be great. You can go a little bit more on the you don't need to have as much focus on those things because it's supposed to look real and gritty. And I think that makes it easier. But like I mentioned earlier is, or I think I said this to you guys off camera, is found footage is one of those genres that like you constantly need to figure out a way to make the audience believe that these characters in peril would continue to shoot a camera or use a camera,
Yeah.
as opposed to just dropping it and running away. And
Yeah.
obviously, through doing 5 movies, it's really difficult to keep. Or that's one of the reasons why we switched to the 5th one to narrative. But like, it's really difficult to keep that logic around and keep that. A lot of times audiences will be like, "Get the fuck out of there! What are you doing? Like, run!" Like,
Yeah.
and that's a challenging thing to constantly keep that logic around. So I think, yeah, I mean, we had a lot of fun with that and worked with that as much as we could. So yeah, we hope people like it.
Oh,
Um,
trust me, people
Yeah.
like it.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, because the person in the email said, "I did not know that this was just made up,"
Yeah.
because I think the first one is shot really well because you get movie and then you get the documentary style from a different person and it goes back to the movie. And a lot of horror movies should be shot like that to give the real aspect.
Right.
And you guys don't really shove the narratives like some horror movies do, like running away from a serial killer and the keys are in the visor, or
Yeah.
the first thing they do is check their cell phone and, oh look, no service.
Right.
You guys just shoot movies, and that's why I think horror should be more and more realistic. to
Well,
give-
I think you guys are giving us the ultimate compliment because if people like that email, if people are saying that they didn't know if it was real, I feel like we did a really good job, or we did what we set out to do, because you have to think about it like found footage has been around since the 80s, and
Yeah.
people really didn't know what found footage was, and that's why when Blair Witch came out, there was this whole like phenomenon, like what is this movie? And because we didn't have social media and really the internet wasn't really a thing and was becoming a thing, that's why the Blair Witch team were able to like take advantage of the fact that like we're gonna hide these actors, we're gonna put them away and make you we're gonna make a website and make you think it's real. But then after the success of Wreck and Paranormal Activity and all these other films that have come out since, we made these movies in a time frame where not maybe. So I always say this: found footage and horror fans know of Grave Encounters and VHS and The Taking of Deborah Logan. Regular general audience people don't know about that stuff. Usually, if you ask a general audience person, "Do you like found footage?" the first question is, "What is that?" And then when you explain it to them and they understand, the only 2 movies that they know are Blair Witch and Paranormal Activity.
Yeah.
And so the thing that is interesting, and the thing that why I say it's the ultimate compliment, is we came in a period where Blair Witch was successful, Paranormal Activity was successful, and then there was like this major like oversaturation of everyone trying to do found footage.
Yeah.
And so when you now have an audience that understands that this is like a medium that's being used to scare them, and now there's all these movies coming out, to be able to stand out amongst those feels like it's like we really appreciate that people like were able to get scared enough to really kind of say to us like, hey, this felt real. And like to this day, I was talking about it the other day, I bumped into a person who asked me what I'd worked on before, and I was like, have you ever seen the Hell House movies? And they're like, no. And I was like, you should check them out. And they watched it and they were like, is this a real story? And I'm like, no, it's not.
No.
I couldn't make it up. So
So I kind of messed with my wife about this a little bit. So
oh,
yeah, I was like, "This is based on true events." She's like, "Where? We got to go see it." I'm like, "I'm kidding. Relax."
Yeah.
Because she was all for it because I've always wanted to go to the Amityville Horror House and everything like that. So she treated it like it was an attraction, like we could just go up there tomorrow
Look
and
at
we
it,
could
yeah.
see
well,
it.
you can go to Lehighton, Pennsylvania, and you can go to the Waldorf Estate in that town, which is a haunted house attraction, and it is the attraction that we shot the first three movies at.
Oh, so it is actually a thing. Okay.
Yeah, to talk
Well,
about
there you go.
talk about meta, we shot a movie about a haunted house attraction that's haunted at a haunted house attraction.
Nice.
Got it. Okay.
Nice.
Yeah, but they do an awesome job there. Angie, who runs everything there, it's incredible what they do. If you guys ever have an opportunity to go up to Pennsylvania in the fall, they do a cool haunted house. They have like massive amount of property, so they do all these different breakdowns in different areas where they kind of hit like this is the Nightmare on Elm Street area, this is the Michael Myers area, but they have a whole basement hell house area where you actually go through the basement that the characters go through and everything, and they have the clown there and all that stuff, so it's pretty cool.
Well, Brandon, guess what we're doing this fall?
I know what I'm doing. I
Are you
have to
gonna
go
actually,
through it.
Are you actually going to go through it?
We'll talk about it later.
See, look what you've done to my co-host.
We'll talk about it later.
So
So back onto the found footage movies, I wasn't like a huge fan of them at first because like the first couple of movies I've ever seen were not like the projects and all that. They weren't those. They were different ones, and the camera just moving around and shaking so much was just like, okay, I
Makes you nauseous.
can't. Yeah, I can't. It's too motion to me.
Right.
Where your guys' movie and all the other ones that we've seen for Haunted has not been that shaky. It's all been very stable, and you could see everything that's going on.
Well, I think one of the things that we do is ours isn't technically fully found footage. It has the like documentary pseudo found footage mix to it. So I think whereas like for instance in 1999 when Blair Witch came out, I saw that movie and it made me sick in theaters. And
Oh.
and like I always say, like to me the mecca of found footage movies is Paranormal Activity. But I think one of the things that we benefited from was taking on that whole like making it like a documentary thing. So you don't technically ever really have more than like a 15-minute sequence of nonstop found footage. Like you will have some like historical town references, like newspaper clippings and all that kind of stuff. And I think for that original film, the first Hell House, we tease it in the beginning, the big like malfunction of what happens, and we show it on, in the beginning, but then we come back to it later on and we show the longer piece and we show with everyone else and all that kind of stuff. So you get splices of it throughout the movie and then you get the full thing at the end. And so I think for people who get a little queasy and don't like the constant moving, we didn't have that because you'd have crazy and chaos or whatever, and then it would be like documentary.
Yeah.
Kind of switch back and forth.
I love like the mesh of documentary and then
The found footage,
real
back and forth,
stuff,
yeah.
and then come back to it. I just love that because it gives you the perspective from other like people that was involved and stuff like that. Because I love backstory. The more backstory from me, the more enjoyable
you get, yeah.
like I get out of the film.
Yeah, and I don't know if you guys have seen this. I directed a movie called The Unknown Dimension: The Story of Paranormal Activity.
I just saw it last week.
Yeah, so that movie was so similar to you, Brandon. When I got in, when Steve and I first started working together, I wasn't the biggest found footage fan. Like I said, I've always been a huge fan of Paranormal Activity and those movies. I've loved
Yeah.
them. But I wasn't the biggest fan of Blair Witch Project, and I've seen others. Some of them were really good. Some of them I just didn't think it was my genre. And then when Steven approached me and we started talking about it, I was like, if I'm going to make this movie with you, I need to like immerse myself in this. And I
Hmm.
think, I've been very, very lucky to not only immerse myself in found footage, then make this found footage genre. Then I had the opportunity to go on and make a documentary about paranormal activity where I was able to do a ton of research and interview a lot of people, from like the earliest film, which was UFO Abduction, which came out in 1989. I was able to like talk to all these different people. So like by the time I finished that documentary in 2021, I had probably the biggest, you know, amount of like knowledge from different people telling me stories and telling me how things went, how movies were made. In terms of like at a studio level, at the biggest level for Paramount, when you're making these like blockbuster, multi-million dollar movies for paranormal activity, to like little indie films like Hell House LLC. So I went from like not really caring about it to being like, oh man, this is incredible. And
Yeah.
still to this day, I think before I got into it, and even to present day, I think found footage is great if it's used the right way. And I
Yeah.
think just like any other successful model, when you have a lot of saturation and a lot of things come out, it's hard sometimes, especially with the way our content is given to us these days. It's really hard to sift through them all and find out what are the actual really good ones and what are the ones that are, just kind of adding to a group of like quantity over quality.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of found footage that I don't like. I don't like Blair Witch. I was not a Blair Witch fan. I thought that movie
Hmm.
had too much hype for me. And then I went to the theater, and then I kind of saw the film, and I was like, I kind of felt let down.
Well, fair enough. And listen, I'm not going to tell you what's good and what's bad. You
Yeah.
determine what that is.
Yeah.
I will just say the thing that I've always loved about Blair Witch and the thing that I think was incredible was they 100% took advantage of like .com and like and like making people feel like it was real. I think
Yeah.
that is the thing that sets Blair Witch apart from any other found
Well,
footage.
yeah, because the internet just
You
started coming
didn't, yeah,
around.
exactly. You didn't really know what it was, and like nowadays, you can Google, ChatGPT, whatever, and figure out in 30 seconds if Hell House is real or not.
Yeah.
Back then, you couldn't, and like you had people going to Maryland and like being like, "Is this real? Does this actually exist?" And like I think that when you don't, I mean, you guys have said it multiple times on this, like when you don't know if something is real, there are people that are like, I'm going to stay as far away from that, and there's people that are like,
Yep.
wait a second, let me go check it out or whatever, and that's a type of fear that you can't manufacture. And when filmmakers can do that, like I always say, my favorite thing about working in this industry is the fact that like we can come up with something that's like a thought, something that scares us, something that's funny, whatever. We can come up with something, put it down on a piece of paper, bring people together, shoot it, act it out, put it on a 2D screen, and then it'll make people not want to go to sleep, or it'll make people feel terrified for their life.
Pretty
That's
much.
Yeah,
that's
pretty
my
much.
favorite thing about this industry is like an idea can make someone lose sleep. That's wild to me.
Yes. And your movies have done that to us. Thank you.
Yeah.
Like, I was always a found footage fan, like VHS, as you said, or
Hmm.
what was the other one? Recording, Poughkeepsie tapes,
Hmm.
just all the good ones. But your guys, to me, your guys' movie stands out the best to me
Yeah.
because
It's
number
that
one, it
sense of
doesn't look like
tone.
found footage. Number two, it doesn't feel like an indie film, and the acting is so superb that it doesn't feel like anything like I've seen before,
Great. Thank
and
you.
that's why it stands out to me the most.
Thank you. We
And so let's no more nightmare fuel, all right? That's because we
Yeah.
got to stop that. But we got to talk about your newest film that just hit Shutter a couple months ago, and that's 8254 Road.
Yes.
Like from start to finish, this movie fucked with me for days because
It
again, you
did the same
guys
here.
knocked it out of the park with original.
Yeah.
Like you guys are popping out probably the most original horror content I've seen in the last 15 years because it feels like horror is just redundant remakes, prequels and stuff that we don't really need. But
Yeah.
you guys really killed it with this film.
Thank you.
Like the way the mannequin moves subtly and appears in the front yard,
Yard. Yep.
just stuck with me.
Yeah.
Like, how did you guys bring this film to life? Because this film needs to be talked about.
I think Steven is really good with inanimate objects and making them feel like they're terrifying, and bringing them to light. Like in essence, the mannequin was our clown. So I think No, this movie came about. Steven wrote it. It was his first non-found footage movie that he was going to direct. So we found a couple other producers at Epic Level Entertainment that partnered with us, and we went on this journey. We got stopped a little ahead of time because we wanted to shoot it, and then COVID happened, so that we had to delay. We shot it in 2021. And yeah, I mean, that was a fun set to be on. Cast was amazing, crew was amazing. Indie bones, gorilla bones, that kind of thing. And ultimately, we were setting out on doing it like a ghost story, just a little ghost story in a small town. And I think, Steve did a great job with creating the mythos around Helen Foster and this character that feeds on people who deal with depression and have depressing thoughts. And I think we just had a lot of fun making it, and I think we finished it in 2022. We didn't find a home for it for a decent amount of time. So again, like, I think we always want to make sure that our cast gets an opportunity to see themselves. And so when we found a home with Shudder and our sales agent Bluefinch earlier this year, it was like, great, now everyone gets to see this and we get to put it out there. So, and I alluded to it, and I got to play another cameraman again. 'Cause I
What
did
is
play a cameraman in Carmichael Manor, and that was upsetting to me.
what is with you and cameramen being killed in every movie, man?
It started as necessity, and it turned into like a funny running joke between Steve and me.
It's just hearing you talk about it, I'm like, this man just dies in all these movies.
I also have gone through many different phases of my facial hair and my hair, and I feel like I can kind of look different in different roles. So that's kind of been one of those jokes of like, being somewhat ethnically ambiguous allows me to kind of look different and play different things. Like, the funniest thing is, I think now, since we're doing our fifth Hell House movie and 825 Forest Road, we've done 6 movies together. People who like the movies and look into the movies understand and see that. But I think, initially, like, there would be people who'd see the first and second Hell House and had no idea that, like, I was in those movies, or no idea that it was the same person. And then, like, I think over time people started realizing it. So it's just a running joke. And yeah, when he wrote 825 Forest Road and sent it to me, I was like, I'm definitely playing this character, right? And he's like, yeah, 100%.
And the fact that you were all in agreement before you even read anything
Yeah.
is hilarious.
I
Yeah.
mean, this
It's
character.
all in
Yep,
the
I already
yell.
know.
It's all in the yell. I think the ultimate reason why is the yell. If you watch the end of 825 Forest Road and that big sequence when Helen comes into the house, that yell, that's all me. And I think if you watch the original Hell House at the end of the movie, it's the same thing. I think I have the ability to do like a shrieking high voiced pitch scream that I think Steve resonated with.
It's pretty bad that you brought that scene up from A25. It's I just heard it in my head and I didn't have to put the movie on.
Yeah, no.
Like, I over this past weekend I watched it again because I've already seen it 3 times, and I had
Yeah.
to pass it on to my friends, and they have told me to tell you they weren't able to sleep after 825 Forest Road either.
Well, again, we've done our job.
And everybody said the same thing. If they walk into a room and the mannequin's back is to them, that they would probably jump the mannequin. So
Yeah.
I'm
It's funny.
kicking it out the window.
Our like holding location that was across the street from the house that we did most of our shooting in was a massive warehouse. And so, like, when we shoot late at night, there would be times when, like, our production manager and like maybe a costume person would be alone in that giant warehouse with like 5 mannequins, and it was definitely we always. It's funny, I was having a conversation with one of the actresses, the actress who plays Alicia in the Hell House franchise, Sierra. We always talk about how, like, whenever Steve and I do stuff, we don't intentionally try to do things to make it creepy, but almost inherently, just from the stuff that we're doing, like late at night, it always is a little creepy on the sets that we're on.
and you guys always find the almost like haunted, like creepiest houses.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah. Pennsylvania has been great to us.
is that
Oh,
where
yeah.
everything is shot?
Yeah, we should. Steve's from Pennsylvania originally, so I think he goes back and always wants to shoot stuff in Pennsylvania and kind of have his roots kind of come out and everything. And the towns that we shot in Lehighton, Jim Thorpe, Palmerton, and then Carbondale, and I think Clifford Township.
Mm-hmm.
And Whitehaven. There's probably and Scranton. Yeah, all of the towns we've shot in, the people there have been incredible. Sometimes it's a little bit more difficult to shoot in places. Sometimes it's a little easier. But every time we've gone to different places, the people that we worked with and like there, a lot of the times we always say like. The Hell House movies are for our fans, but including 825 Forest Road, all of these movies are because we have so many amazing people that make these things happen, and so it's just incredible to like go into a community and have people want to be a part of it, as opposed to be like, what the hell are you guys doing? You're annoying us for 20 days. Get out of town. Although we did have some when we shot 825 Forest Road. We had someone in town that basically kept calling the police on us because she said that we're the reason why like murder exists and why like we're like us making these movies.
Really?
It's devil worship, and like she was basically trying to blame everything on us. But here's the kicker on this one, because this is the best part about it, is a few days after I think we finished shooting. I can't remember if we finished shooting, but a house that was like 3 houses down from her, they found out that I can't remember if it was a guy or it was basically a couple, and one of them died and the other one buried them in the backyard because they wanted to continue to collect their Social Security. So then the police came to the house and dug up the backyard and found the body in the ground. And so, of course, that was like one of those really funny things because it happened while we were shooting. And I'm like, maybe this lady's right. Like, maybe we're bringing this stuff to the towns we're shooting in.
Oh God, no,
Oh my God, no!
no.
That is, and that probably like left you guys thinking maybe we are the problem here.
No,
Maybe
we knew
we
it
should
was
get rid of horror movies altogether. No.
It was very ironic. I don't think I've ever told that story to anyone. So there's your exclusive, guys.
That is very very fucking creepy. I thought that was gonna go some like a different direction. I thought she was gonna die like 2 days or 3 days later.
Well, the woman who was complaining.
Yeah.
No, but the interesting thing is like we didn't know, like for days they didn't know if like the partner killed the other one and buried them in their house and like all that kind of stuff. So there was a lot of like, oh my God, did this person kill someone? Did someone else kill someone? And then it was like the person died of natural causes and they just buried their body. They buried their body in the backyard so they can collect two Social Securities instead of one.
We don't condone this action.
No, not at all.
I'm just gonna put that out there. So, when making a movie like Hell House, do you have a preference to be like behind the scenes, or do you prefer to be in the actual movie, like a cameraman, the clown, or anything like that?
Honestly, like I think filmmaker first for me, like always behind the scene, always kind of figuring out stuff and working with Steven or on other films that we haven't worked on with one another. Myself, I like being behind the concept and like figuring out what makes these scenes work. That's always my love. And then I love working with actors. I love when they like bring things to the scene and put things together. So I think for me, behind the camera is always number one. But I love that like these movies have given me an opportunity to be in front of the camera and have fun too. If there's something different, like if you're like when I'm producing these movies, when we go to a new location, when we're doing a new scene, there's a lot of like, a lot of things are happening around in terms of like how we're getting there, what we're doing, like logistically, parking, food, bringing the teams together, making sure everyone has what they need, and then creatively making sure the scenes are coming together, working with Steve to make sure he's getting what he needs. A lot of things are happening from like a producer perspective, but when I get to actually like put on the mask, like those are moments where like I don't have to worry about all that shit, and I can just do this one thing.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of love that comes with both, but like if I had to choose one, behind the camera is always the best way for me.
Do you have a favorite of the Hell House series?
Yeah, I can tell you the order I like them in.
Yes, please.
Yes, please.
I'm going to exclude Lineage. I'm going to exclude that one since no one's seen it and no one can, like, if I start saying things about it, one, I'm not going to give away stuff. So
Yeah, no.
And two, I feel like I want to hear what people have to say about it before it goes into my ranking. But unfortunately, I think it is true. Originals are always the best, so I think the first one's the best. Mm-hmm. I think Carmichael Manor is the second best. And then for me, I think Lake of Fire is third and Abaddon Hotel is fourth. That's just me. I know. I'm pretty sure Steven would say the exact same thing, and that is no impact on like the people who've worked on it, cast and crew. Like everyone we've worked with is incredible. Me personally, I just think with the first Hell House movie, we did things well, but we also got lucky. We had a lot of real things go our way, and I thought we really caught something really good. And I think when we moved on to the second movie and the third movie, I think the second movie specifically, we started structuring some of the scenes and some of the ways we did things a little bit more traditional and less loose like would be done in found footage. And I think we took on a little bit more of control in terms of letting the actors have a little bit more flexibility like we did in the first one. And I think that's the reason why it didn't go the same way. And I think with the third one, we tried to kind of open it up a little bit. But I think, when you talk about the first one and the third one are the two that are the most alike in terms of group of people coming here knowing that bad things happen, and then there's this big event that happens and there's a malfunction. So they both had similar structures, but I think first one still and always probably will be the best. And then I think we just we really, I always tell everyone to this day, my favorite set experience in any movie I've ever worked on in my career was Carmichael Manor. Like that was one of those, because making movies are difficult, like they're challenging. Like they seem like a lot of fun and everything, and they are. I wouldn't do it if they weren't. They're challenging. You have a lot of things, like time is always against you, money is always against you. You always have to figure out creative ways of doing things. With that film, every single crew person worked insanely well together. Everyone got along. The cast was incredible. They went above and beyond in terms of what they were supposed to do. Like the three, Bridget, who plays Margot, Destiny, who plays Rebecca, and Victoria, who plays, I think she plays Catherine Carmichael? No, she plays Margaret Carmichael. The three of them got really close in shooting, and then after we were done, they continued the Margot storyline of Margot going to haunted house locations and shooting stuff, and they put together a whole website of that and showed it to Steven and I, and we were like, this is incredible. But like that kind of stuff, it's different when you sometimes you get people to buy in, and sometimes you get people who are like there to just do their job, and both of them work, and both of them, there's success and there's not success and so on and so forth. But I think just again caught a couple really lucky things with that fourth movie, that I think the fourth movie from like a story perspective is probably the closest to the first movie.
Wow. Yeah, I have to agree with that, because the first one will always be my favorite, because I think the movies that lay the foundation for what's to come is always going to be the best one, in my opinion.
Yep.
So, what can we expect out of Hell House Lineage, though? Can you tell us anything?
Yeah. So, I think it's the scariest movie of all of the movies that we've done. So yeah, there's a lot more clown. So that's what you can expect.
There you go, Brandon.
A lot of clown. Not just one clown, three. A lot of fun with the clowns. And yeah, I think we made this movie for the fans, so we hope the fans love it, and we hope we know that we're not going to we know that there's going to be people who are going to be upset that we didn't do a found footage movie. So we hope they love it too, even though it's not sticking to our original format. And listen, at the end of the day, we've created so many branches of storylines that we can go in so many different directions. So I think we will give people some answers, but I think at the end of the day, it's impossible to answer every single question that we've laid out in the franchise. And I think, we'll probably have some people that'll be upset that we don't answer everything. But I think we really, really kept in mind the fans when we made this movie. So I think the fans are going to love it.
I can't wait. It's probably my most anticipated movie of the year.
It's awesome. And this is a good year for horror movies, too.
Yeah, it's I've been waiting for another one forever. And it like you guys,
been a while.
Because I just can't wait. Like, I wish it was August tomorrow.
You're going to have to wait at least 2.5 more months.
God damn it. But is this the final chapter of Hell House?
As far as we are concerned, yes. This is the way Steven and I have been making these movies, and the way we've been kind of building them in this format. This is definitely intended to be the last movie that we do. But never say never. I'm not gonna sit up here and be a hypocrite and say it will never ever happen. I just know, like, we're definitely shutting the door here. And who knows what's going to happen in the future? But this is intended to be the last one.
I can't. I just can't wait to see what happens next with you guys. Like
Mm.
anything, just like I said earlier, anything you and Steven put out, I'm glued to the TV. I don't
Yeah.
care what it is.
Thank you.
You guys have my eyes. You have Brandon's eyes, and I
Yeah.
know you a couple other people that I know can't wait to see what's next, man. Like, we,
Thank you. Yeah.
but Joe, thank you very much for taking the time to talk to us because I know you're probably a busy man. Getting ready
Mhm.
to do a tour on promoting this movie, and you got a couple cons and stuff like that. So I really appreciate the time you.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you guys. I mean, if you've heard me on podcasts before, I'm saying the same thing I always say, but I do really want to express my gratitude to you guys for
Mhm.
doing this. This movie has always been a word of mouth movie. This movie is not like a notorious, like every person knows about this. This is the type of movie that some people know about it, and they meet people and they're like, "Oh, you've never heard of this movie? Go check it out." And so
Mhm.
you guys having a podcast where you're talking about this or having me on or discussing this is a big reason why our movies are successful. So I want to thank you guys for
Yeah.
having me and for doing this
No,
because I don't think
No.
we'd be
No.
anywhere.
no, thank you for
Thank
putting
you
out these films.
for making them. Yeah.
Like, well, we would love to have you go back on to promote the movie when it comes out. So,
Yeah, yeah.
you
You
guys are,
guys have my contact
Yeah.
information. Let me know.
but thank you again for joining us, man.
Of
Appreciate you.
course, of course. Take it easy, guys.